The most devastating form of destruction isn't noise. It's silence backed by presence. You don't need a raised voice. You don't need threats. You don't need a single word. The real assassins of reputation and control, they don't yell. They don't react. They stand still, let the chaos erupt around them, and become the one variable no one can manipulate. In the modern world, where outrage is a currency and attention is a drug, most people are slaves to response. They argue to defend their image. They overexplain to prove innocence. They shout louder when they feel ignored, because silence makes them feel invisible. But here's the truth. The one who stays quiet while others perform owns the stage. Because silence unnerves. Silence disrupts. Silence breaks the performance mask. It turns the attacker inward. It makes them second guess. Why didn't he respond? What is he thinking? Did he see through me? In that moment, you become the frame. Machiavelli understood this before psychology had a name for it. He knew that the most terrifying power isn't in what you say. It's in what you don't need to say. Power is the refusal to engage in ego battles. It's not lowering yourself to correct someone's delusion. It's letting your calm presence expose their chaos. Because when a weak man yells and you remain silent, the whole room sees who's in control. So don't confuse restraint with weakness. Restraint is power under full command. And in the hands of the disciplined, it becomes the most dangerous weapon on earth. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to break egos, reverse power dynamics, and dominate the battlefield without raising your voice or saying a single word. We say thank you all for your support. Ensure you hit the subscribe button right away. Like, comment, and share this with others. To begin, you have to first understand the psychology of quiet power. Silence is not passive, it's precision warfare. The insecure don't fear confrontation, they feed off it. They want you to flinch, to explain, to react, because your reaction gives them purpose. It validates their presence. It proves they matter. But silence unsettles them. It's the one thing they can't control. They know how to argue. They know how to provoke. They know how to play victim, twist words, drag you into the mud. But they don't know what to do when you simply don't respond. That's when the panic sets in. The man who doesn't flinch owns the frame. Because everyone else is performing for approval, for dominance, for attention. When you don't take the bait, when you sit in your stillness, they feel like fools screaming into a void. Their power begins to collapse in real time. This is where Machiavelli's genius cuts deep. He understood that when you withhold response, you turn your enemy inward. You force them to confront the one thing they've been running from all along. Themselves. Their own insecurity, their need for validation, their lack of self-respect. And most people can't survive that mirror. Because here's what silence does. It gives the other person space to expose themselves. They start talking more. They get louder. They start inventing narratives just to justify why you're not reacting. They begin to self-destruct and call it conversation. And the longer you stay calm, detached, non-reactive, the more control you absorb. Your silence becomes their paranoia. Your stillness becomes their chaos. They project all their weakness onto you, while you say nothing at all. That's why calm disinterest is more terrifying than rage. Rage can be dismissed. Rage is emotional, unstable, predictable. But calm indifference? That's surgical. That's power. Because when someone attacks you and you don't flinch, you show the world that they are irrelevant. You show that their words have no gravity. You don't deny their insult. You starve it. And in doing so, you show them exactly how powerless they are. The room feels it. They feel it, and more importantly, you own it. The Machiavellian doesn't need to shout. He doesn't need to correct. He holds the silence like a blade, steady, sharp, lethal. And when he finally speaks, if he speaks at all, everyone listens. Because the longer you wait, the heavier your words become. So remember this, when you say nothing, you say everything. Let them fill the space. Let them drown in their noise. You just hold the mirror and watch them shatter. If you're still watching, we are just starting. Comment power in the comment section if you're still watching till this stage. Now, Machiavelli subtly revealed those silent strategies you can apply. 1. Body language as a power play. You don't have to speak to dominate a room. In fact, the most powerful men in history did very little talking. Why? Because when your presence speaks louder than your words, you've already won. Body language, the silent code of power. Most people don't understand it, but everyone feels it. And in the Machiavellian world, what people feel is far more important than what they hear. Let's begin with eye contact, the unspoken battlefield. When you look someone in the eye and don't flinch, you force them to see themselves. Most people can't handle that. Their gaze wavers, their pupils dilate. They look away, adjust their clothes, scratch their face, anything to escape the intensity. Why? Because direct eye contact is a dominance trigger. In the animal kingdom, only predators stare. Prey avoids. And when you lock eyes calmly, without aggression, you send a brutal message. I'm not afraid of you. I see you. But it's not just the stare, it's the stillness behind it. Weak men fidget. They tap, they shift, they crack their knuckles, adjust their posture, laugh nervously. That's not just anxiety, it's submission. It's a physical apology for existing. The Machiavellian doesn't need to fill space with movement. His stillness is the message. When you sit, stand, or even just exist without constant motion, you train others to feel your authority. Because stillness says, I'm comfortable. I'm not here to impress you. You move around me. I don't move for anyone. Now look at space control. This is one of the most misunderstood elements of silent power. Every interaction has invisible lines drawn: who stands closer, who steps back, who adjusts their position, who yields the room. Pay attention next time you're in a conversation. Who takes the wider stance? Who leans in? Who backs up? These micro movements form a hierarchy, and most people never realize they're communicating surrender with every shift. Here's a Machiavellian tactic. Never be the one to step back first. If someone enters your space, hold position. Let them feel the tension. It's not about physical confrontation, it's about psychological resistance. You're training them to recognize you don't yield. And if you do step aside, do it deliberately. Slowly. On your terms. Not like prey, but like a king allowing someone to pass. That distinction changes everything. Presence, then, is not about volume. It's not about charisma, humor, or trying to be noticed. True presence is built on control of movement. Think about this. The most feared man in the room is often the one who doesn't move unless he has a reason. He doesn't nod excessively. He doesn't fumble with his phone. He doesn't laugh just because someone else did. His baseline is calm. He holds himself like someone who knows exactly who he is and exactly what you are. This is what Machiavelli would call dominance without effort. When your body is still, your eyes direct, your posture commanding, you disrupt the emotional rhythm of everyone around you. You make others question their own status, their own confidence, their own control. And the more they shift, the more obvious it becomes who owns the frame. Don't mistake this for arrogance. It's not about looking tough, it's about being untouchable. A man who can sit still in tension is a man who's dangerous without threat. And in a world filled with noise, distraction, and insecurity, that calm unnerves people. It makes them talk more to fill the silence. It makes them justify themselves when you haven't even spoken. It makes them reveal their intentions just to get your reaction. But you don't give them one. Because the Machiavellian understands, the less you do, the more they reveal. The less you move, the more they react. The less you signal, the more they scramble for position. This is power, not by display but by presence. No sound, no flinch, no compromise. You don't take control, you are control. 2. Controlled absence, weaponizing your withdrawal. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is disappear. Not out of weakness, not out of fear, but out of cold, calculated design. Because the modern world is addicted to presence. People expect immediate responses, constant availability, and emotional accessibility. But here's what Machiavelli would say. Presence is currency. Spend it wisely. And when you stop giving it out like loose change, you instantly shift the power dynamic in your favor. Controlled absence is a Machiavellian weapon. It's not ghosting. It's not avoidance. It's strategy. You pull back not to vanish, but to make others feel the vacuum. And in that vacuum, they start to spiral. They question, they project. They reveal more in your absence than they ever did in your presence. Let's break it down. Start with conversational silence. When someone says something disrespectful, inflammatory, or manipulative, don't respond. Let the silence expand. Most people are terrified of silence because it forces them to deal with themselves. They start talking more, explaining, backtracking. They try to manage the discomfort, and all the while you say nothing. You're not ignoring them. You're dominating the frame by refusing to reward their behavior with energy. Next, master the delayed response. Texts, emails, invitations. The world teaches you to be fast, to be eager, to respond now. But eagerness is cheap. Delayed response creates psychological distance. It says, you don't control my time, I do. And that pause, that silence between their message and your reply, that's where they start rethinking everything. Did they say too much? Not enough? Are you offended? Are you busy? Are you even interested? You haven't said a word, and they're already off balance. Controlled absence also applies to physical space. Leave a room. End a conversation early. Miss an event. Go quiet after being fully present. This kind of withdrawal leaves a mark. People remember when you were there, so they feel it sharply when you're not. And in that feeling, respect begins to take root. Because now your presence isn't assumed, it's earned. Here's the core Machiavellian truth. Power is not about being seen, it's about being missed. And when people start missing you, you've already won. Because the mind doesn't chase what it understands, it chases what it can't control. Absence creates mystery. Mystery breeds obsession, and obsession gives you leverage. This tactic is especially effective when someone tries to bait you. A manipulator throws a petty insult, a colleague plays a subtle power move, a friend delivers a backhanded compliment. Don't retaliate. Don't correct them. Just withdraw. Go silent. Go missing. Let them marinate in the echo of their own behavior. Let them wonder why the room feels colder now, why the energy shifted, why their little game didn't land. They won't get closure. They won't get clarity, and that unsettles them more than any insult ever could. Because absence, when used deliberately, is not passive. It's punishing. Think of a ruler who used to walk the court daily, visible to all, speaking to everyone. One day he vanishes from public view. People talk, they wonder, they panic. Has he fallen? Is he watching? Has he turned against someone? And in that uncertainty, fear grows. That is how absence becomes authority. But remember, this only works if your presence was powerful to begin with. Withdrawal means nothing if you weren't felt. So first, you dominate with calm presence. Then, you disappear with strategy. The weak try to destroy with noise. The powerful destroy with silence. Use this, master it, and you'll find that walking away from a moment without a single word can do more damage than hours of confrontation. Machiavelli didn't yell in court. He didn't argue with fools. He simply went quiet and watched empires shake. 3. Tactical indifference, using emotional distance to erode ego. Most people crave attention like oxygen. They feed on reactions, validation, acknowledgement, even conflict. That's why ignoring them is not passive, it's psychological warfare. Machiavelli didn't waste emotion on fools or flatterers. He used indifference like a scalpel, precise, silent, and devastating. Tactical indifference isn't coldness for the sake of it. It's engineered silence, directed precisely at the insecure, the manipulative, and the power-hungry. Because here's the truth. Nothing collapses an ego faster than not being seen. Let's start with compliment starvation. It's simple. Praise everyone except the one who secretly craves it. You walk into a room, acknowledge the team, give sharp nods to the loyal, but you bypass the narcissist entirely. You say nothing insulting, you simply omit. And in that absence of validation, their insecurity starts screaming. They'll try harder, speak louder, show off more. but you stay still, unmoved. Because power isn't in what you withhold violently, it's in what you never offer at all. Now combine that with subtle exclusion. You don't have to uninvite people or start arguments. Just stop centering them. Make decisions without consulting them. Share moments without tagging them. Include them less and less, not to punish, but to shrink their sphere of influence. And because it's so polite, so low in volume, they can't accuse you, but they'll feel it deeply. This is how you create emotional distance that burns without ever being named. You're not rejecting, you're not confronting, you're just uninterested. And here's where it gets lethal. You show warmth to everyone else. You laugh with others, engage with others, offer attention strategically. It sends a message the insecure can't survive. The problem isn't me, it's you. This isn't about cruelty, it's about control. Because once someone believes they're no longer special in your world, their power collapses. The narcissist relies on being the center. The manipulator depends on your reactions. The power-thirsty need your attention to validate their illusion of control. Remove that attention, and you remove their fuel. Machiavelli understood this deeply. In the Florentine courts, he would often deal with dangerous flatterers and silent enemies. He didn't attack them. He didn't threaten. He simply excluded them from his attention. He redirected his energy elsewhere. And in doing so, he turned their hunger against them. The most manipulative people are never destroyed by exposure. They're destroyed by being ignored, because silence denies them the theater they need. It denies them the drama they feed on. Without your emotional investment, they're left performing for an empty room. But this takes discipline. Tactical indifference is an art. You must feel everything but show nothing. You must hear the insult, feel the bait, sense the neediness, and still stay still. No flinching, no emotional breadcrumbs, no validation, not even negative. And if they confront you, if they ask why you've gone cold, you give them the same thing that's breaking them: nothing. Because the moment you explain your distance, you surrender your power. Explanation is engagement, and engagement is food. Let them starve. Let their ego rot in the silence between their expectations and your disinterest. Here's the final truth. Tactical indifference isn't apathy. It's war without bullets. It's destruction without fingerprints. And it's only available to those disciplined enough to resist the temptation to react. Machiavelli wouldn't raise his voice in a palace full of liars. He'd nod, smile, and walk right past them like they didn't exist, because in his mind, they didn't. Master this level of psychological silence, and you don't just repel manipulators, you erase them from your frame of reality. Number 4, high ground mastery. Never compete, just watch them collapse. Machiavelli never competed where it wasn't strategic, because competition, when emotional, is distraction. The loudest man in the room, the one fighting for dominance, the one always defending, proving, chasing, that's the weakest man. The strongest doesn't enter the ring. He stands above it. He lets the insecure burn energy, ruin their frame, and collapse under the weight of their own ego. This is high ground mastery, a level of power where you don't destroy someone directly. You let them destroy themselves. Start here. Petty conflict is a trap. The moment you react to every insult, every jab, every passive-aggressive comment, you're giving the enemy what they crave: your energy. But if you stay silent, if you look at them with calm indifference, you force them into a panic spiral. Why? Because now they're fighting shadows. They throw a punch and it lands on fog. They bait you, but you don't flinch. They expect fire and you give ice. Most people can't handle being ignored during conflict. Their identity relies on your reaction. They want you to argue, defend, even explode, because the moment you do, they've controlled the tempo. But when you stay immovable, the power flips instantly. Your silence becomes suffocating. Your stillness becomes accusatory, and your refusal to participate becomes louder than any insult they could scream. This is the Machiavellian advantage. The man who speaks least is often the most feared, because his silence implies calculation, his stillness implies dominance, and his refusal to play That's what drives people insane. High ground doesn't mean weakness. It means restraint. It's knowing your enemy wants you emotional because emotion makes you sloppy. But if you hold your position, they start unraveling. Their need for validation turns to desperation. Their calculated jabs turn into childish tantrums. And when that happens, you win without effort. This is especially lethal in public settings. When someone tries to challenge you in front of others, don't match their volume. Don't out-talk them. Don't try to dominate with explanation or clever words. Stay calm. Look them in the eye. Say less, or better yet, say nothing. Let them escalate. Let them ramble. Let them expose themselves while you sit in calm command. Eventually the room will turn. People will feel the imbalance, because one man is centered and the other is spiraling. Machiavelli said, "Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. Let them talk themselves into irrelevance. Let them reveal the insecurity you already sensed, while you remain composed, contained, and untouchable." There's no greater humiliation than losing a battle that the other side refused to fight. That's the essence of high ground power. No raised voice, no energy wasted, no effort given. You're not cold, you're strategic. You're not passive, you're untouchable. Let them collapse under the silence, because when you speak sparingly, every word becomes a weapon. And when you don't speak at all, your very presence becomes pressure. This is not arrogance, this is control. The kind of control that says, I am so far above this, I don't even need to respond. It's how Machiavelli moved through courts of deception. It's how you move through a world of noise. 5. The final blow. Let silence speak for you. Sometimes the most powerful message is your absence. Machiavelli understood something most people never will. Words can be twisted, arguments can be dismissed, but silence is undeniable. And when used correctly, silence is not weakness, it's the final blow. Not with drama, not with insult, not with rage, but with quiet exit, with unannounced detachment, with a disappearance that leaves a psychological crater. Let's get one thing clear. Powerful people don't need to make noise when they leave. They don't slam the door, they don't rant, they don't demand closure. They just vanish, and the silence that follows, that's what echoes. No goodbye, just absence. That's the Machiavellian exit. You want to destroy someone politely? Don't argue, don't explain. Just remove your presence and watch what happens. This is the unavailable mystery tactic. You were available, then you weren't. You responded, then you didn't. You smiled, then you disappeared. This shift creates uncertainty. That uncertainty creates anxiety. And anxiety is the most potent mirror. It forces people to confront their behavior without you ever pointing it out. Because here's the truth. When someone can no longer access your reaction, they lose control. They replay every word. They question every move. They wonder what they did wrong. And most terrifying of all, they realize they can't fix it. Silence becomes their punishment. But more than that, it becomes your power. Machiavelli would say, never give your enemy the honor of your anger. Because the moment you rage, you expose that they still have reach. But when you disappear, calmly, surgically, you send a different message. You were never important enough to warn. And that burns far deeper than insult. Now let's be clear, this isn't about ghosting every conflict. It's about precision. You deploy this tactic only when someone has shown repeated disrespect, manipulation, or ego-driven aggression. The mistake most people make is thinking they need a final word to win. But silence is the final word. It says, I'm done. I'm untouchable. I don't need your apology, explanation, or understanding. And it cuts deeper than anything you could ever say. Because in that silence, they're left alone with themselves, with the consequences of what they did, with the echo of their own actions. That's the Machiavellian endgame. You don't attack them, you make them attack themselves. You leave no fingerprints, no trail of blame, no opening for manipulation. You become a ghost of judgment, present only in what's missing. Let's make it even sharper. If someone lies to you, manipulate you, belittles you, don't fight them, don't warn them, don't negotiate your worth. Just walk and say nothing. The weight of your silence will collapse the ego they tried to project. It will do what shouting never could. It will break them quietly. This is not weakness, it's restraint, it's control, and it's terrifying. So when it's time to leave, don't announce it, disappear, and let that vacuum speak for you. Because in the end, silence isn't the absence of words, it's the presence of power. Polite destruction is the peak of power. There is no power more terrifying than calm indifference. You don't need to yell, you don't need to curse, you don't need to threaten. Because polite destruction leaves no evidence, only devastation. No shattered glass, no raised voice, just silence and a collapsed ego. Machiavelli knew this well. In courts filled with betrayal, manipulation, and hidden daggers, he survived not by being the loudest, but by being the most composed. His weapon wasn't his tongue. It was his detachment, his ability to let people expose themselves while he remained unrateable, untouched, unshaken. Understand this. Most people are addicted to reaction. They provoke to feel seen, they insult to gain ground, they bait you with disrespect, hoping you'll flinch. But when you don't, when you respond with silence, stillness, and a stare so neutral it borders on divine disinterest, they panic. Because now the power dynamic has shifted. You're no longer defending, you're no longer explaining. You've become something they can't manipulate. You've become untouchable. Think about it. The loudest people are often the weakest. They shout to cover insecurity. They argue because silence terrifies them. They dominate conversations because they know the moment you speak with calm certainty, they're exposed. That's why polite destruction works so well. You say little, you move minimally, you exit quietly, and yet it hits harder than any insult they've ever received. Because now they're left with questions. Why did you stop responding? Why did the energy shift? Why are they no longer the center of your attention? Those questions haunt. They eat away at insecurity. They unravel the very control they thought they had over you. And the best part, you never had to raise your voice. This is Machiavellian power. Not dominance through volume, but through presence. Not fear through force, but through emotional immunity. You don't just walk away. You walk away in silence. You don't just say no. You say it without explanation. This isn't cruelty, it's calibration. Because when words no longer serve, when confrontation invites chaos, silence becomes your sword. Final truth, the most feared man in the room isn't the one shouting, it's the one who doesn't need to speak at all. Be unreadable, be calm, be untouchable. This video didn't teach you how to talk. It armed you with silence, the kind that shakes rooms and rewires power. Every tactic, every insight wasn't social advice, it was psychological warfare. And if it resonated with you, you're not like most people. You're not chasing attention, you're building dominance. So if you're ready to turn silence into a strategy, if you're done reacting and ready to control the frame, subscribe. Because what we teach here isn't noise, it's precision, it's power, it's the Machiavellian way. Final truth, don't out-talk them, out-silence them, and watch everything collapse.